Welcome to the Michael Rivero What Really Happened radio program.
And welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, February 11th, 2021. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. We have a lot to talk about today. And as usual, we're going to do news until we run out of news. Then we'll open up the phone lines for your comments, questions, observations, and opinions. Mike, our Christmas plans kind of got derailed as... Okay. Welcome to live radio. So anyway, we're going to do news until we run out of news. Then we're going to open up the phone lines and let you call in with your observations and opinions and so forth and so on. Mike is in our control room dealing with the gremlins that we are having to deal with. And so let's get right on into it. You have probably noticed, looking out your window or out your door, it is very cold right now, and apparently more than 100 million Americans are under winter weather advisories. We are here in Indiana. Temperatures dipped below zero. They didn't get quite that cold here. There are apparently a total of 5 storms right now just making their way across the country from Washington State to Washington, D.C. We're very lucky down here in Santa Claus. We're at the southern edge, so we haven't gotten hit as hard as a lot of other people have. But it's still glare ice out there today, and so we're out there with the salt cans and getting the driveways and roadways salted and everything like that. Apparently, in Great Britain, in the United Kingdom, apparently they measured the coldest night in 25 years. The temperature hit minus 22.9 degrees centigrade. And it's, gosh darn that human-caused global warming. That's all I can tell you. And earlier today, there was a 100-car pileup on a Texas freeway. Apparently, the crash zone ran a mile and a half. 3 people died, unfortunately. Dozens were literally trapped in their car because the overnight sleet basically turned the road into a sheet of ice. So basically, until this goes away, you should not think about driving anywhere unless it is absolutely necessary. Claire and I stayed in today. We didn't go out and run errands or anything like that. So there we go. And yeah, it's pretty bad out there. All right, getting into the political news here. A lot of people have commented on the fact that as Biden, his fraudulency, puts together his cabinet, that a lot of people from social media are finding jobs in the new administration. And apparently a law professor who's been working on Facebook's oversight board has now resigned to receive a job in Joe Biden's Department of Justice. Well, this is how Biden is paying social media back for all their support, bashing Trump and supporting him during this last election by making sure they have influence in the new administration. Apparently, Stanford's Pamela Karlan will serve as Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Department of Justice's Civil Division after working less than a year on the Facebook Council set up in 2019 to review the social media behemoth's content censoring decisions. So a little bit of a handshake there. Getting on to the impeachment, basically the impeachment managers got up there today and said blah, 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 blah. And Trump's attorney said blah, 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 blah. And a great deal of nothing. People are already tuning it out. If this were a regular TV show, it would already be canceled because of the ratings. But there was one moment of excitement. Apparently, the Democrat impeachment managers were forced to withdraw statements falsely attributed to Senator Mike Lee. And apparently they attributed a quote to him to try and make it look like Trump was somehow to blame for the January 6th protests. They had to withdraw when a fact check turned out that Senator Lee hadn't actually said what they claimed. So that's a little embarrassing moment there. Okay, it has now come on out that the video used as the main evidence by Democrats to prove that there was violence at the Capitol on January 6th came from Antifa. Apparently, they're now working as the Democrats' media relations or media production department here. And they're still out there trying to sell the idea that if Donald Trump hadn't given his speech, that there would have been no violence, except that it's already come on out. The police and the FBI knew ahead of time there was going to be some kind of an upset. And the break-in to the Capitol building actually occurred before Donald Trump even finished that speech. It really is a very, very weak case, and unless the Democrats can blackmail or bribe a large number of GOP senators, Trump is going to be acquitted, and we are expecting him to basically make a political comeback and, claim his vindication. Apparently, there were more deaths at the January 6th riots than just the woman who was shot by the Capitol policeman and the policeman who died, and they no longer are saying what the cause of death was because the fire extinguisher story turned out to not be accurate. But apparently there was one man who died supposedly of a heart attack, and a witness has come forward saying that he was shot in the face by the Capitol Police with some kind of a projectile. It may have been a tear gas canister, which is a favorite trick of the Israelis because they can inflict a lot of damage if they hit you. So one of the guys who got hit, he couldn't start breathing, he collapsed, and that's when everybody was screaming, "Paramedic, paramedic." Kamala Harris is sort of being hoisted on the Democrats' petards. They're out there saying that Trump incited the violence at the Capitol building, but Kamala Harris has been joking about killing former President Donald Trump. Is this an impeachable offense because she's inciting the violence? And if the same standard is applied to Kamala Harris that is being applied to Donald Trump, the answer would be yes, absolutely. What is really annoying the Democrats right now, what is really causing them to gnash their teeth and cry and whine and everything, apparently support for President Trump, popular support, is not weakening. It is basically holding steady. And as a result, a lot of the GOP who sided with the pro-impeachment crowd are now realizing their seats are vulnerable next election. Because it's going to be a long time forgetting what happened this last November. Now, apparently more than 120 former Republican officials held a Zoom meeting, the subject of which was forming a breakaway anti-Trump third party based on what they're calling principled conservatism, and apparently Trump's spokesman is branding them as losers. But we're hearing all this talk about a third party, whether it's the Patriot Party or the Necktie Party or the Toga Party. I don't know what they're calling them all right now. But apparently this group held this Zoom call about forming a new party, which would draw heavily from Republican ranks, and the GOP, as we have known it, may actually be in its death throes, and they did it to themselves. They did not stand with the president through all of this phony Russian hoax stuff and everything else that was thrown at him. Trump had to stand alone and deal with it. It could be the end of the GOP. They've shown themselves to be political cowards, not lacking in standards, as it were, here. All righty. Now, then, up in Windham, New Hampshire, I imagine they're probably pretty cold up there right now, they held a hand recount of all the votes, and they discovered that the Dominion voting machines shorted every Republican candidate by 300 votes. So people say there's no evidence of election fraud. Yeah, there's plenty of it out there. It's just nobody wants to look at it. You've got Congress and you've got the court system, doing that see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. I don't see it and I don't hear it and you can't make me yeah. Down in Georgia, their state election board has voted to move forward with an investigation into newly elected Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock over potential voter registration misconduct. Now, Warnock defeated Republican incumbent Senator Kelly Loeffler, in the runoff election. And apparently they have discovered that there was skullduggery going on in there. And apparently part of the problem was they hand-delivered 1,268 voter registration applications after the mandatory 10-day period had elapsed. So in other news, apparently overnight in the mail, 4 mail-in touchdowns for the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the team. I botched the joke. What can I tell you? Okay, yeah. The Kansas City Chiefs received 4 mail-in touchdowns last night at 4 o'clock in the morning. They have now been declared the Super Bowl champions. Out in California, Governor Gruesome Newsom is really beginning to feel the heat. It was only about a month ago he said, this is nonsense, this is not going to go anywhere. But the recall effort is working. Tom Del Beccaro, the chairman of the Rescue California PAC, working to recall Governor Gruesome, said his team now has over the needed 1.5 million signatures to force a recall election this year. They're still out there collecting signatures. They want to get 2 million signatures by March 17th, just in case the California swamp starts trying to toss out invalid signatures. And I bet they'll get them too. They really, really will. Newsom is very unpopular with all of his lockdowns and things. All right, another little story. This one's coming out of the Gateway Pundit. Apparently 2 Black Lives Matter protesters. I hope you haven't eaten lunch recently. This is, yeah. Anyway, these 2 Black Lives Matter protesters, both men, were arrested after they rubbed a dirty diaper on a conservative reporter's face and then smashed an egg on her head. The reporter Tara, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce this, Szczynski, I think, was also hit with an umbrella and was the victim of a skateboard attack. Now, she's a female Trump supporter, and these Black Lives Matter protesters were screaming that she was a Nazi while they were attacking her. Wonderful people they have over there on the left, as it were. Okay. The Biden administration has announced that it will continue efforts to extradite Julian Assange. And so anybody who had any hopes that the change in presidencies was going to have any effect, it's not. Biden still wants Assange. The deep state still wants Assange. He was a tremendous embarrassment when he got hold of and released that video of U.S. forces committing war crimes. They want to make an example of him. They want to kill the idea of independent journalism. And one of the things I am very angry with Donald Trump about during his last few days in office, he was handing out pardons like they were M&Ms, and the 2 pardons we all wanted to see, Julian Assange and Edward Snowden, did not happen. And that, I think, is an absolute travesty. Getting on to social media now and the games they like to play, YouTube has now shut down LifeSite's channel. And apparently they deleted every single video. It's not a temporary ban, it's permanent. They have just been, you know, unpersoned, if you want a good word there. Now, LifeSite News has backups of all the videos, but obviously hundreds of thousands of people are no longer able to access their content. Now, their videos are also on Rumble and bit.ly. And various other websites. So they've got defense in depth. But it is frightening the amount of power social media has come to wield in our country, especially when you consider they're not elected. Nobody voted for YouTube or Facebook or Google or Twitter to control our lives. They absolutely did not. Now, Nathan J. Robinson is a leftist pundit, and he's kind of a fop. He likes to wear three-piece suits, which is okay. I went through a phase where I was always wearing three-piece suits. Now, as you can see, I'm in these T-shirts here. And apparently he has been out there writing that cancel culture is not real. It's a conspiracy theory. It's a figment of your imagination. It does not happen. And then today he got canceled. Talk about hoisting with your own petard. All righty. Now, Disney has fired actress Gina Carano. She was part of the Mandalorian cast. And apparently, she did a series of posts on social media that critics claimed were offensive. There were actually 2 cast members from Mandalorian who did that, but only Gina, who's a conservative, was let go. And apparently she has now been dropped by her talent agency as well for daring to have an opinion. How dare you have an opinion? You're supposed to be a brainless actor. How dare you? Anyway, okay, let's get to the international news. Apparently, rights groups are outraged. Twitter has purged the accounts of Saudi political prisoners. They have now been unpersoned. Saudi Arabia itself has suspended its defense ministry's website because of commentary being posted to the site that was less than flattering to the kingdom. So they just decided we're not going to bother with that anymore. So that has gone as well. Instagram has banned Robert F. Kennedy Jr., claiming that he is putting out COVID-19 vaccine misinformation, meaning information that doesn't go with the officially sanctioned story about what a wonder drug the vaccine is. You know, Kennedy is doing nothing more than reposting the stories we're getting out of Europe about the adverse reactions that people taking the vaccine are getting. But it's been declared misinformation by the Führer, and so Kennedy has now been banned from Instagram. Now, Facebook claims they're going to start testing ways to reduce political content. In other words, Facebook doesn't want to be a forum for people to exchange ideas on campaigns and policy and candidates. Basically, they want to go back to a place where people share funny cat videos. And, you know, they're even talking about dialing back content from verified political figures. And Facebook says it's going to reduce the distribution of political content so that they don't have to face the backlash when it appears to be filtered. In other words, they're just going to filter it all, which is why you come to Republic Broadcasting and whatreallyhappened.com to find out what's really going on. Meanwhile, Facebook and Google have gone before the United States Supreme Court arguing that it should be harder for people to sue them, especially over privacy violations. And they're basically asking the Supreme Court to make it harder for class action lawsuits to pursue cases against them. So we'll see what the Supreme Court rules on that. But they have become very, very powerful. Fortunately, there are new competitors springing up, which they're trying to crush, like Parler, which is still not back up, by the way. So let's talk a little bit about COVID-19. It's still out there. It's still being politicized. And it turns out that Russia's Sputnik V COVID vaccine is a surprise global hit. Now, you need to remember that the Sputnik V is a more traditional vaccine. It's attenuated pathogen vaccine. It's not an mRNA like Pfizer and Moderna. It's not a DNA like Johnson & Johnson. And people who are very skeptical of these brand new rushed-through technologies are instead preferring to buy Russia's Sputnik V COVID vaccine, and governments around the world are listening to their population and doing just that. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show, and once again, a friendly reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network needs your continuing support so that we may keep the American people fully informed so that they can make good choices. And if you do not continue to support Republic Broadcasting, we're going to have to be forced to sell our control room technicians for medical experiments. Really painful medical experiments. So one more time, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. And of course, all that contact information is up at the top of republicbroadcasting.org. All righty, I'm looking at this article. This is from the American Institute for Economic Research. It crossed my desk just before airtime, and it's basically looking at all the scientific studies on masks, and their conclusion is that the masks don't really seem to have an effect on COVID-19 because of the difference between the size of the particle and the weave of the mask itself. As I've described it before, it's like trying to stop mosquitoes with a chain link fence. So they're out there saying it really doesn't really seem to work here. But the CDC has now reversed and basically said, you should wear 2 masks now. So somebody's making a lot of money with their stock in those companies here. All right, do that real quick. And let's see. Joe Biden is now mulling travel restrictions, even though the COVID situation seems to be in decline. Now, of course, it's been hard getting accurate numbers, and we know that right about the time that Biden was inaugurated, the methodology for determining a COVID case basically was changed. They announced it, and they even said this is going to result in lower numbers, which is what's been happening here. Despite that, though, Biden is out there talking about domestic travel restrictions, and apparently for some reason he's taking a hard look at Florida. And of course, DeSantis is responding. Biden is clearly upset with how Governor DeSantis is allowing his people to live normal lives. Horror of horrors. They're going about their daily business. They're going shopping. They're going out and having fun. Don't you understand? The new normal is masks and social distancing and misery and suicide. Over in Germany, there is a new scandal breaking regarding the Drosten PCR test and false positives. Now, we have criticized the PCR test before as being very unreliable because if you run it long enough, you will find anything in those results. You could have the Midas touch for all that they know here. And it has generated a lot of false positives, not just in Germany, but here in the United States of America. So that is definitely breaking. And the other part of the scandal is apparently Germany's Ministry of the Interior hired scientists specifically to justify tough corona measures. It's the golden rule of science. Whoever has the goal decides the science. And apparently the Ministry of the Interior went out and got a bunch of scientists and said, you will be paid for coming up with evidence that we have to maintain the tough corona measures. And their intention was to deliberately trigger a fear campaign based on what should be called, fake science. All righty. Now then, apparently, okay, all right. I had to take a moment there. They had a power surge at RBN, and I was just checking to make sure that you were all still listening to me, because if you aren't, I'm going to shut the heck up. There's an immunologist out there, J. Bart Klassen, and he just published a new article in Microbiology and Infectious Diseases where he points out the possibility that the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines could cause long-term chronic illness. It is a legitimate concern because, again, this is a brand new technology, this mRNA. We know that RNA is an unstable molecule. That's why they have to keep the vaccine so cold. And again, it was rushed through with nothing even approaching adequate testing. In fact, the inoculation of the general population is considered part of the test schedule. So we're all guinea pigs now for that. But Dr. Klassen is out there saying that, these vaccines have the potential to cause more disease than COVID-19 itself. And long-term listeners will remember that one of the doctors that I consulted about my condition is convinced it's an adverse vaccine reaction. So nasty stuff. Okay, we got to take another break for commercials, pay some bills, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're still talking about COVID-19, and one of the aspects of the continuing lockdowns, and remember, all the way back in, was it March of last year, they said it's only going to be for 3 weeks to flatten the curve and make sure we don't overload the medical system. And here we are coming up on a year later, and they're still doing the lockdowns, and it has had a severe effect on the mental health of Americans in general, and especially children. And this is a very sad story coming out of the New York Post. Apparently down in Texas, I should stop saying apparently, I just got an email complaint about that. Down in Texas, a 12-year-old boy who was dealing with depression from the lockdown hanged himself. And Hayden Hunstable of Aledo took his own life 3 days before his 13th birthday because he didn't know how to deal with the isolation and depression. The boy's 9-year-old sister, Kinley, found him hanged in the bedroom. That's very sad. And we've been hearing there's a lot of suicides out there associated not just with the lockdown, but with the loss of employment and the economic stress. That's all killing more people than the COVID virus itself is. Over in Great Britain, boy, they are getting really, really strict over there. The COVID police state has declared that travelers that are entering Britain from any country on the government's red list must quarantine in a hotel, which they have to pay for. You have to go there prepared to quarantine in a hotel. So pick a nice one. They have to have 3 negative COVID tests. And if they lie about where they're coming from, if they don't admit they're from a red list country, they could go to jail for 10 years. And unfortunately, those 3 COVID tests are all PCR tests, which we know are very inaccurate. Over in Wall Street, and we talked about this before, but it's come up again, Goldman Sachs is out there giving advice to the medical industrial complex and saying, look, actually curing diseases is a bad business model. It's really not good. Ongoing constant treatments for chronic conditions is where the big money is. And I wish it was a joke. It certainly sounds like one. But that's actually what they're thinking, on Wall Street. They don't want you to actually be cured of anything because if they were to cure you, you pay the bill and then you go away. But if you have something that requires ongoing constant treatment, that's a guaranteed revenue stream, and they are all happy and going on out and buying Lamborghinis. Apparently, the Biden administration is sitting on $1 trillion with a T dollars in unspent COVID-19 relief funds. And one has to wonder why they didn't grab onto that in order to get these COVID relief checks out there. But according to a Republican study committee tally, $4 trillion has already been appropriated for relief. Biden's plan would grow that by about 50%. And even GOP supporters of a big coronavirus package say that is too much. And basically, House leaders have asked the administration to identify that $1 trillion in unspent money. But so far, the White House has refused. Apparently, they have ideas about where they would like to spend that windfall, that found money here. This story is a little bit sick and tells you just how warped corporate media has become. Over in the United Kingdom, the Express actually published a story to reassure readers that getting ill and dying after receiving the COVID vaccine was actually a good thing. But after the public came on out and said, "Are you kidding me?" Subsequent editions of the story removed any mention of death as a beneficial side effect. So, you know, there's times when the propaganda to be effective, propaganda has to be believable, and this just wasn't. It absolutely wasn't. All right, turning to the international news here, despite Israel's best efforts, Iran's influence and presence in the Middle East and in Syria specifically is spreading. One could blame that on the Biden administration's halt in the maximum pressure campaign, but that influence was increasing even when Donald Trump sat in the White House. And, you know, the Biden administration halted the maximum pressure campaign as a stepping stone to reimposing the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action Treaty, which now looks like it may be dead on arrival. Anyway, the first of this month, Iran carried out its first successful missile launch since Biden became president. The missile is the Zoljana, Iran's newest domestic-built satellite-carrying rocket. And it is hailed as Tehran's most powerful rocket, and it can either carry a 220-kilogram satellite or up to 10 smaller ones. And the Trump administration and also Israel is reportedly accusing Iran of using such tests as a way to develop capability for ballistic missiles with a nuclear warhead. Well, you need to go back and look at the early space program, both in Russia and the United States, when the rockets that were carrying our astronauts into space were in fact converted nuclear ballistic missile launchers, like the Redstone and the Atlas and the Titan. The very first purpose-built rocket for space exploration was the Saturn V. So, you know, it's this dual-use technology thing can be a double-edged sword here. Over in Iraq, their Shia leader al-Sadr is backing an early vote supervised by the United Nations. And apparently, Iraq is going to hold early parliamentary elections this year, a central demand of an anti-government protest movement which erupted in 2019 and is backed by al-Sadr's supporters. Also in Iraq, the al-Sadr Brigade has taken to the streets of Baghdad in a show of force. They have deployed in droves to several districts of the Iraqi capital after receiving information about threats to holy sites. And apparently the threats were directed at both Sunni and Shiite holy sites as well, and they went on out there to try and protect them. Iraqi activists are looking at the political mainstream after the protest movement has been crushed. They're looking at wanting to change the political class, getting involved in the process, and trying to change the system from within, which is admittedly a more peaceful way to try and get things done here. Meanwhile, a bipartisan majority of the U.S. Senate has called on President Biden to push Turkey to do more to protect human rights and end Ankara's belligerent and combative foreign policy. 54 senators signed the letter sent to Biden Tuesday, which accused President Recep Erdogan of marginalizing domestic opposition, silencing critical media, jailing journalists, and pursuing independent judges. This coming from the country where YouTube and Google and Twitter and Facebook are shutting down anything critical of the government and vaccines or even human-caused global warming. Down in Palestine, the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, or UNRWA, is still limping forward. They suffered through years of Trump administration pressure, but apparently, you know, they're still in Palestine and still, you know, helping with hospital bills and medical care for the Palestinian people. Meanwhile, the Palestinian mayor of Hebron is receiving death threats from the Jewish settlers. And apparently he received death threats from the mayor of the Jewish settlement of Kiryat Arba Eliyahu and Liebman, sorry, I misread that, and a member of the Israeli parliament, Moshe Abutbul. No, it's still very, very tense over there. Can't we all just get along? Apparently, the IDF's Northern Command held a large-scale exercise along the northern border with Lebanon, simulating a war in Lebanon. The drill was dubbed Thunderstorm. It tested the Northern Command's ability to rapidly respond to outbreaks of violence on the border. Now, the exercise came a week after Hezbollah supposedly fired anti-aircraft missiles at an Israeli drone over southern Lebanon, and amid warnings from military intelligence that the terror group may attempt to launch attacks on the border in the coming year. Apparently, this whole international criminal court thing about Palestinian war crimes, it has already stopped being about international law, and it's rapidly becoming about politics. And now the foreign ministries of Germany and Hungary have denounced the International Criminal Court's ruling last week that the court has jurisdiction to open an investigation into war crimes by Israel and the Hamas terror group. Now, Israel has denounced the ICC ruling. The U.S. has objected to it, and Israel and the U.S. are not members of the ICC, but the Palestinian Authority joined the court in 2015. Oh, it's a complex situation, and I certainly hope the ICC moves forward, because somebody has got to hold Israel to account for their treatment of the Palestinian people. Apparently, the U.S. is now flexing their military up in Norway, all the way in the way north, and I can imagine they're really cold. And it's a huge show of force. It's probably the biggest since the Cold War, and it's sending a message to Russia to basically stay away from our turf. But apparently they're deploying long-range B-1 Lancer bombers to Norway to train in the strategically important high north in a new show of force. So they're rattling their sabers, definitely here. The U.S. has now changed its reason for being in Syria from guarding the oil fields to fighting ISIS. And, of course, the United States' presence in Syria is illegal under international law. There is no declared war against Syria by the U.S. Congress. Syria's government doesn't want them there. And they kept on saying, well, we have to be here to protect the oil from being used by terrorists. Well, they quit doing that last week, and now they've dragged ISIS out of the attic, dusted them off, and said, yes, we're here to fight ISIS, and that justifies our staying inside a country that doesn't want us here. The problem is that if there is a Syrian air clash, it could pull Biden into a conflict that would be involving Russia and Israel. So we've got this convergence of multiple, sometimes opposing forces in the skies over a near decade-long civil war that appears to or threatens to draw the U.S. foreign policy back into the quagmire. Now, Trump was trying to get us out of Syria. Obviously, the military-industrial complex, the more wars that are being fought, the more of your money they're making, and so they're probably putting up a big fight here. Article coming on out of Zero Hedge, how Biden's posturing in the Middle East could hurt America. And they're basically talking on how his fraudulency has been focused on fulfilling the election promises in the first month in power. Biden reversed an extensive list of Trump policies using executive orders. Biden is now focusing on the Middle East. In stark contrast to his predecessor, Joe Biden's administration is taking a reserved and diplomatic approach towards the ongoing crisis in the Middle East region. Now, the administration is yet to fully address Iranian sanctions or the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action Agreement, but it has stepped up the pressure on some Arab countries by temporarily blocking arms sales to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Now, the NATO chief, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, has communicated with Ukraine that the door is open for Ukraine's membership in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, even though Ukraine isn't on the Atlantic. Little technicality there. This has, of course, upset Russia. They are not at all happy to have Ukraine go into NATO. So again, it's building tensions, and you can almost smell that there's a major global war on its way. All right, now Joe Biden has held his first phone call with Xi Jinping in China, and both sides are presenting somewhat different versions of what was talked about here. And in a tweet last night, Biden said he spoke with President Xi to offer good wishes to the Chinese people for the Lunar New Year. He also shared concerns about Beijing's economic practices, human rights abuses, and coercion of Taiwan, and told him Biden will work with China when it benefits the American people. Now, what we're hearing from another source, this is from Madness Hub, is that Biden's call with Xi Jinping was mostly about trade and Beijing's crackdown on democracy activists in Hong Kong. Meanwhile, coming from the Chinese side, what they're saying is that a U.S.-China confrontation would be a disaster for the entire world. He's certainly right about that. And Xi Jinping stressed the need for cooperation between Washington and Beijing after discussing several bilateral issues with Biden. And I'm sure somewhere in there was talk about the South China Sea. Article coming on out of Moon of Alabama. Something is iffy in Myanmar. Okay, it's been 10 days after the coup that happened because of massive election fraud in the last election, and already there is a U.S.-style color revolution countering the coup to try and restore American hegemony over that part of the world. The suspicions are raised. All right, story coming on out of Russia today. It's called Black Hawks, plural, down. And it's talking about a recent series of crashes of the iconic UH-60 helicopters. Apparently 5 of them crashed in a very short period of time. And they're saying, it's obviously the difficulties of maintaining an aging aircraft, which is at the end of its life expectancy. It may be a catalyst towards using more disposable weapons, but it may indicate a larger crisis with U.S. military procurement and effectiveness. We're going to take a break for commercials. I'm going to come back to this story after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. We're coming up on the top of the hour. We're talking about America's military equipment. We're talking about a slew of UH-60 helicopters crashing. We have been focusing on this in the past years. We've talked about the Independence and Freedom class littoral combat ships, which were absolute disasters. We've been talking about the F-22, which still asphyxiates its pilots at high altitude. The list of problems with the F-35, it just goes on and on and on. The Zumwalt stealth destroyer, which it turns out isn't that stealthy, has its problems, especially with that inverted bow. The Gerald R. Ford, they can't keep the magnetic catapults running. And they're having problems interfacing its electronics with the more modern electronics of planes like the F-35. So it's a huge mess. America spends more on the military than the next 25 nations combined, 24 of whom are supposed to be our friends. And but you look at these costly failures and boondoggles, and you start to realize that merely spending more money may not guarantee military victory. And that's something that I hope the war hawks in Washington think about before they do something irrevocable. All right, little bit of news about the economy. Apparently, the silver shortage is spreading. Apparently, it has spread to the 1,000-ounce wholesale bullion market. And, people are just buying up the metal. It's good that they're doing it, but now there's definitely a shortage happening, which is going to drive prices up even more. Meanwhile, MasterCard has decided to join Visa and PayPal on the crypto payments bandwagon. And they're out there promising they're going to make cryptocurrencies more safe, useful, and applicable, and they will now be part of these companies' payments network. I've seen the little gizmo for Bitcoin over on PayPal. I haven't used it yet, but they're definitely getting on board here. Meanwhile, the New York Stock Exchange chief is warning that the exchange may leave New York if a stock transfer tax is imposed. And apparently another tax us more Democrat quickly changed her tune when the actual taxes are proposed that impact her business. So they're out there, and everybody wants to raise taxes, but on somebody else. Don't tax me, tax those people over there. They're evil, they're conservatives, they deserve it here. All right, right now we have 14 Republican attorneys general are urging President Joe Biden to reverse his decision to cancel a permit for the construction of the Keystone XL crude oil pipeline, alleging severe economic harm and threatening to take legal action. I don't know how many jobs it was that Biden basically eliminated there. All right, we're going to take a break for station identification. We're going to open up the phone lines, area code 512-248-8252, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, area code 512-248-8252, and we're going to go to Joe in California. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hello, Michael. Just two quick things before I get to my main points. I'd like to, if Tom's listening in Florida, I'd like to know what coffee brand he drinks, because I have a lot of reading to catch up on, and I plan on doing it late at night, and Tom gets really, energized
well,
by that.
I've known that about Tom. I'm not even sure it's coffee he's doing.
We love you, Tom. We love you.
All right.
Mike, also, if any listeners, any of the listeners out there have a Tesla, I'm interested to hear their feedback, because I'm looking at a Tesla, but I've heard some bad things about Tesla. There have been a lot of recalls, and I just want to get their view on the car's performance.
Okay, well, we'll put out the call for people who own Teslas to call in with their reports. I mean, I like the idea of the car, but like you, I've heard reports about exploding batteries, and the auto drive system isn't really what it should be. There have been a couple of deaths involved. There was apparently one really bad accident where the automated driving system literally did not see a semi truck that was crossing in front of it. So, of course, I'm in agreement with Jeremy Clarkson. I don't want a computer driving my car. I agree. I have a cruise control and a traction control, and that's it. I don't want anything more between me and the road.
I think that's my neighbor, who's a big proponent of Tesla. He's got shares in the company. I think he told me that the auto drive is an option, so it's not something that you have to have in the car. In fact, it costs extra, so it's not something I'd want to have added. Mike, you mentioned the silver 1,000 ounce bars. I believe these are the bars that are purchased by the big industrial users, like Apple, Tesla, for example. And if there's a shortage in those, could you foresee a time, in fact, could happen very quickly, could you foresee the feds banning the retail sale of silver?
Well, it's happened before with gold, and you're right. Silver is a metal with a lot of industrial uses. I think there's something like 27 kilograms of silver in each Tomahawk cruise missile. We decorate our weapons better than we decorate our wives, and I understand why the conductance rate, the propagation rate through silver is much better than it is through copper or aluminum. We could see silver shortages, and it could actually become a strategic problem. And based on what Roosevelt did with gold, yeah, they could simply say silver is banned, turn it all in. We'll give you this nice stack of pretty colored paper in exchange for it.
Right, because you have silver being used in computers, cell phones,
Yes.
Solar panels, and Tesla cars. So
Yes.
if it gets this bad, I mean, the shortage gets this bad, you might see that. Last 2 points, unless I'm mistaken, before this whole COVID thing started, I never once heard Boris Johnson talk about the urgency of dealing with climate change.
Yes.
Have you? Because he must have some very dark skeletons in his closet that seems are only known by the puppet masters.
Okay, that could very well be the case. Or he may be looking at, pounding on climate change as a way to distract Londoners from how he botched up the COVID response.
Right. Well, I don't even believe he had COVID because he was allegedly in the hospital and he was close to death. I don't buy that whole story. I think it was all a lie. Finally, Mike, energy independence, that was also a means of getting us out of the Middle East, of having us, we wouldn't have to rely on the Saudis or, any of the countries in the Gulf, and we would not have to be involved in any future wars. But it seems like the self-proclaimed Zionist Biden is doing the Israelis a favor. Because now, if we do lose that energy independence, we're going to need to be back in the Middle East.
Yes.
Look at what he's doing in Syria, for example. We're just stealing Syrian oil.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So that's all I have. Thank you, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. And we're going to go to Sebastian in Sweden. Hello, Sebastian. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, hi, Mike. I just have to report that it's been pretty quiet on the bombings and all the et cetera in Sweden because of the coal.
Yes.
It's been about 6 weeks now that it hasn't been zero. It's been minus the whole time for over a month and a half here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
gosh darn, that didn't cause global warming.
Yeah, exactly. I tell you, the cold weather, I think, is keeping a lot of people in, and very few people are going out. But I do get the RSS feed from the police.
Yes.
And there are a heck of a lot of, DUIs in Sweden now because of this COVID.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many, people driving drunk on the roads. And speaking of COVID, there were 728 reports of suspected side effects, and 267 are classified as serious in Sweden. Mm-hmm. And of the 69 deaths already here, there 67 are linked to Pfizer's, and 2 have been linked to Moderna vaccine.
Moderna.
So we have, Moderna, yeah. So I think it's, I'm not taking it, if it's, I just refuse to. I think that, I think you should just take vitamins and try to stay healthy and, try to build up your own immunity.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I had to report. Is it's cold, really cold here. That's what I have to say. It's and you were talking about this what do you call it? That NATO thing in the north. I was in at my wife's house on the border to Russia. She lived about 10 kilometers from the border, and it was the winter. I think it was somewhere it could have been late 70s, early 80s, but it was minus 47.
Yeah.
Minus 47. That's cold, but it was a dry cold. It wasn't a damp cold like you get maybe I'm not sure in Indiana, but I know they get them on the East Coast. If it's really cold, it could be a damp cold, and it's worse than a dry cold. But it's pretty cold.
Yeah, it's definitely much colder there than it is here.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I had to report.
Claire and I are still adapting from Hawaii, so for us this is cold. Thanks a lot, Sebastian. We're going to switch over to Kelly in Austin. Hello, Kelly. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Good day. Is it as cold there as it is down here in Austin today?
Okay. What temperature is it there?
Well, it's 32 degrees right now, but it's supposed to get down below 10 degrees here over the weekend and
It's
even in the early
28
part
here
of
right
next
now.
week.
It's 28 here right now.
You know, well, we're going to have some frozen precipitation here over the next few days, so
Yes.
I expect to see a lot of car accidents on the streets here in the City. There are a couple things I want to talk about. One, and just briefly, well, first I want to address Al's rant yesterday about the Mercator projection.
Okay.
I told you last week when I called you about that anybody who knows what the Mercator projection is understands that it is not meant to represent the actual physical size or area of a landmass because of
Correct.
the nature of the projection.
Yes.
It's ideal for navigation because it
Yes.
allows you to letterize the features that you see on a curved surface. Now, you know, his going on and on about the size of Antarctica and all that. Yeah, we all know that. But those of us who work with these maps know that. So cut it out. And if you're out in the field somewhere and you're trying to navigate, say you're orienteering, as I used to do.
Yes.
You're going to use a map that's based on Mercator projection. Otherwise, there's no other map out there that you can use that's not going to get your butt thoroughly lost in the damn woods.
Yes.
So cut it out. All right. The other thing, more importantly,
yes,
that idiot Biden is going to blow up the Middle East, and he's going to get us. He's going to get us involved in a war with Russia. I think.
I think so too.
Because he's in there talking to NATO. He wants NATO to get tough on Russia, and there will be a confrontation, I'm afraid, and the confrontation will come about because of America's illegal involvement in the Middle East. I don't think Russia's going to allow Biden to push Syria around, and Biden is just ignorant enough to think that he can get away with that. Now, if that happens, I fully expect Russia to kick our ass.
I'm afraid you're right. I mean, if you look at the Zircon and the Avangard missiles, we don't have anything that will defend us from those.
Well, no, we don't. Plus, you know, he's dismantling our energy infrastructure, everything needed to support a military that might be involved in a war. So he's really weakening. He's really weakening the system from the ground up. And look, that might be a good thing because that might wake people up enough to realize that he has to go. I hope it turns. If it does, I hope it will turn Americans by the millions against that clown, and that might be what.
Well, millions of Americans were against that clown, but the Dominion voting machines kind of reversed that. I mean, you know, yeah, I mean. Absolutely. We've been cut off from the operation of our own country.
Yes, millions. I think millions more is what I'm saying here.
Okay.
And by the way,
Agreed.
with reference to
Agreed.
the Dominion voting machines, Mike Lindell has put out a video.
Mm-hmm.
He commissioned an investigation. You can get it on his site, michaeljlindell.com.
Yes.
And they lay out in minute detail how they know the election was stolen. In the last 45 minutes of the video, it's a 2-hour video, but the last 45 minutes of that video, where they look at what happened in Antrim County, Michigan, and explain what happened in great detail, and then they look at all the cyber data that they were able to collect around the world, and you can very clearly see in there where the attacks came from. The hackers from China and Iran got into American voting machines. Now they say that those machines weren't open to the internet. They were.
Yeah, we know they were
open to the internet.
Okay, but I want to caution you here. I want to caution you here because when they say the attack came from Iran or China, and I know that China wanted Biden in there because they own him through Hunter, but what you're detecting is the last in what could be a very long chain of compromised machines. And anybody who understands computer security understands that if you're on the machine that is being attacked, and you get the IP of the attacker, it may actually have little to do with where they really are or who they really are.
Well, that may be the case. However, I think the explanation that the lady who in the last 30 minutes goes through here is a compelling explanation, and I think it does point directly to it, to foreign hackers.
Okay.
And so if you go to his website, michaeljlindell.com,
yes,
it comes right up, and you can watch it right on the screen, right there. I'll send you the link if you want me to.
No, I already have the link. We posted it to what really happened.
Oh, okay. Well, very good. I watched it last night, and I got to the last 30 minutes of that video. I was just slack-jawed. I'm serious. More people, everybody needs to watch that. Mike, thanks for taking my call today.
All right, you've got it. Thank you for the phone call. And everybody listening to this ought to go out and buy a MyPillow just to help support Mike Lindell when all the retailers are, kicking him out because he dares to question the legitimacy of Joe Biden's election. Okay, we're going to go to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, I understand Lindell's doing it super. He's never had more sales now. Online.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. Yeah.
The way you do it, you kick these big corporations in the butt. And I just want to bring up, what you said about what we're pushing with Russia now.
Yeah.
I think if NATO decides to take in Ukraine, I don't think Russia's going to allow that. I think at that point they'll either invade, taking the East, incorporating them, which they probably should have done when they incorporated Crimea, because the East wants to be part of Russia, or they're just going to invade the whole Ukraine. Now, for U.S. to pick a fight with them, with this old creep Biden, who, this incompetent old, demented old fool, in a ground war with Russia, right, with the military we have today, with these transvestites and the demoralization of our troops, with the purge going on, I would say we have about as much chance of defeating Russia like in a land war in Eastern Europe as I would have of going into the ring with one of the top MMA fighters, okay?
Yes.
Practically none, because the Russians are motivated. They're defending their homeland.
Yes.
They don't have defective weapons like we do.
No, they've got newer equipment.
And exactly, and they're ready. Now, if it goes nuclear, God forbid, I mean, God forbid any kind of war like that, but if it goes nuclear, they're probably more prepared than we are there, too, because they've got shelters and stuff for their people.
Yes, they have.
We don't even have shelters.
They've got an anti-ballistic missile system around the city of Moscow, and by treaty, the United States has allowed one as well that they basically put around Washington, D.C., rather than New York or Los Angeles or the population centers. So,
right, it's actual shelter, too, where the people can go into. Now, I don't know if that would do any good. I mean, nuclear war to me would probably destroy most or all of this planet. But that's
it all depends on how dirty the weapons are. And certainly we have to acknowledge that the United States nuclear industry, if you will, is trying to produce clean nuclear weapons, by which I mean all of the fissionable radioactive material is consumed in the detonation, and all that's left are, these very rapidly decaying isotopes that are going to be gone in a few weeks. Some of those earlier bombs were very dirty, and you still can't go into where they were set off.
No, I don't know if I trust any of that stuff. I mean, nuclear war.
Well, buy a radiation meter. They're cheap enough on eBay.
But as far as Biden goes, though, the man is dangerous.
Yes.
Like I said, he's senile. And yet he's got his finger on the nuclear button. Very dangerous situation. And of all people that provoking Russia is absolutely insane. Now, as far as Iran goes, I think Russia should actually give a few of their nukes to Iran as a deterrent to Israel. Okay, that would cause a mad situation between Iran and Israel, because all it'll take is one or two bombs, and that's it for Israel. Israel wouldn't think that, well, we can nuke Iran and not have to worry about a counterattack. Okay. No, that would create a mad situation there. It's not a good thing, but right now Israel goes and seemingly does what it wants to do.
Yeah, nobody holds Israel to account, and what we need here is a little balance of terror there. By the way, I did confirm that the United States still has what's called the two-man rule, which means that Joe Biden, no matter how senile he gets, cannot launch an unprovoked nuclear strike all by himself. He has to be seconded by somebody in national command authority. That's going to be a very hard trick to accomplish. But in the end, Biden is just a puppet. And all of these decisions and everything are coming from the people surrounding him. Remember that video came out where somebody put a paper on his desk and he says, I don't even know what I'm signing. And they said, just sign it anyway.
Yeah, I know. And what about when he went through that monument there and somebody said to salute the Marines, and instead of saluting the Marines,
he repeated the word, salute the Marines.
The guy barely knows the plan. Let's be honest about it. And as far as threatening states like Florida, okay, if I was to say, I would make it clear. You don't threaten this state. We're going to put National Guardsmen on our border, and we're ready. You dare want to start with?
Okay, Mark, I'm sorry, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials, pay a few bills here. We'll be back with more phone calls after these few words. And welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Bruce in Texas. Hello, Bruce. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for welcoming me on. First off, here's some good news. Larry Flint died, so he's gone.
Okay.
So I don't know where they're going to bury him, but hopefully it's a place where you can go and void yourself.
I wasn't a big fan. I'll be honest. I was definitely not a big fan.
Yeah, his fourth wife. I was just reading an article on him that kind of like praises him and all this. It's funny though how they were all about the free speech when it concerned pornography. Remember that?
I remember that.
Yeah. Yep. It's funny how things change. His fourth wife died at the age of 33 from heroin and AIDS.
Okay.
And he made a diaper out of the U.S. flag.
Okay.
He showed up at the Supreme Court in a diaper, and he cursed at the judges and all this. So what a piece of work he was. And
very much so.
What I called about was Gina Carano.
Yes.
And it just annoys me to no end. I hope people take a lesson from this. I know the general conservative or even the general audience doesn't listen to this show. People here already know. But pandering to the Jewish experience of the quote-unquote Holocaust and making analogies to that, I don't care what you're doing. Just drop it. Forget it because it's not valid. Okay?
It's something that happened, before we were all born. I'm an old guy, and whatever it was that happened in World War II happened before I was born, and I'm just frankly not that interested. In fact, I think you could say I'm suffering Holocaust fatigue, which I'm sure Israel is going to say is just another form of anti-Semitism.
No, if you can look at what's going on with the deplatforming, the depersoning, the essentially destroying your life, if you upset, the Jewish lobby, organized Jewry, the liberal side of it, we're all Palestinians now.
Yes.
I think that's an effective and accurate analogy. And that's all I had to say.
All right. Well, thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to switch to Tom in Florida. And Tom, before you even start, a few deep breaths, relaxation, do some Tai Chi. And I'm probably going to have to take you through the commercial break. What's on your mind?
Yeah. Hey, Mike. How are you? Yeah, Mike. To your caller, Joe, I'll give you the 3 coffee brands that we drink, but mainly the one. One of them is called Bustelo. The other is called Pyong. And the main one my wife usually gets is Le Lave. Okay. So they're all good brands. So just so Joe knows. And by the way, Joe, we love you too, Joe. But, I hope before you leave California, you let everybody know about Newsom and bumbling buffoon Biden. I really hope you know what they're in for when all those illegals over there. So when you do leave, if you come to Florida, wherever you go, please bring your conservative politics with you. We sure appreciate it. So that's all I got to say on that. Now, Mike, I want to go on about China and Mars. I want to get to China and Mars and the United States to race to Mars.
Yes.
Can you imagine if a bunch of Chinese do get on Mars first and they polluted with the Wuhan flu? I mean, can you imagine a virus on the surface of Mars? One Chinese goes there with some kind of, or an American for that matter. So
well, the
I think
question is whether we'd even survive in the Martian environment. I mean, it's extraordinarily cold there, very low atmospheric pressure. And when they were talking about, the concern that Martian bugs might be brought back to Earth, they'd probably die as soon as they opened the hatch on the thing. So, but obviously some care is definitely needed.
Yeah, Mike, I think we need to beat those Chinese to Mars. I think we need to land an American on the surface of Mars like we did on the moon with Neil Armstrong. One small step for man and one giant leap for mankind. I mean, we need a European on northern. But look,
and this time he rehearses the line ahead of time so he doesn't botch it.
Yeah, there you go. Right on. And to the guy from Carolina, he's kind of correct on if we go against Russia, I think we'd probably get our tails handed to us. But I will say this, Mike. Remember, people. I don't know if all your audience knows, but all the northern white people all the white people in this country, in the world, for that matter, European people in the United States and all over Europe, and everything, they all came out of Russia. We all came out of Russia, called the Caucasus region. That's where the white civilization all started, in the Caucasus.
Okay.
If you don't understand that. So they're basically the Russians are the original white Northern Europeans. They're the Vikings or whatever we want to call them. They
were originally Vikings. The Rus, were a Viking tribe that basically migrated to the east.
That's right, Mike. That's right. No, by the way, Mike, what's real big news here in the sports page here in South Florida right now? I mean, it's all over. Anyone on the splash on the front page of the sports. Tom Brady completes another pass. What was another pass that should have been an errant toss or something. You heard about that?
No, I didn't, but I'll tell you what. We got stay on the line. We're going to put you on hold, and when we come back, you can fill us in on that story. Okay, welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Tom in Florida. And Tom, if you could back up just a little bit because we lost what you were trying to say in the bump music. So take it away.
Well, yeah, Mike, I just want to say that go Tom, go Brady threw the Lombardi Trophy to another boat, and they're making a big stink about it. If it would have went in the water, well, it did, and the guy caught it. And so it was another completed pass by Brady. So there goes Tom. And I thought these leftist media spinning doctors are going nuts, and all these imbeciles in the sports world media leftists are going nuts. And Mike, have you seen? I hope you get that tweet. My cousin sent me a picture of Brady with Mahomes on his back, and it says, "Take your son to work day." It's the funniest thing. You got to see it. I'll try to.
All righty.
I don't know if you. Yeah, it's really great, but. Yeah, that's one thing, Mike. Now they're making a big thing that Brady and Trump were good friends, and Brady should have spoke out more against Trump. I mean, these leftists down, even here in this South Florida area, these communist leftists. These people don't know when to end this nonsense. Trump can't have no friends if they are like a guy like Brady. Brady's not a good guy. It's just utter nonsense what these leftist commies have done. Mike, one more thing, and I'll let you go. I know you got another call. Look, real quick.
Yes, I do.
Biden. The night that Biden called Trump a clown, Trump should have never lost. He should have called him a Jezebel. Trump should have shot back, "Hey, listen here, Jezebel," or something, or "Listen here, you bumbling buffoon." Donald Trump was being too much of a gentleman that night when he allowed that bumbling imbecile to call him a clown.
He was.
And a lot of these white women, I think, saw weakness in Trump for that. Even though Trump was trying to be a good, polite guy.
Okay, Tom, you keep going back to the white women, shifted the election. We don't know that.
All women, I guess, for that matter.
Well, we don't even know that because of how fraudulent the election was. We don't know which demographic really voted which way. We can't look at the results of the November election and draw any real-world conclusions from it because it's pretty much a fiction.
Well, Mike, I agree with you, but let me ask you one question. If Tom Brady were to run for Senate in Massachusetts against Elizabeth Warren, who do you think would win that race? Tom Brady or Elizabeth Warren?
I would, in an honest election, Tom Brady.
Okay, I agree. I'll agree with that. However, as a matter of fact, Brady might run for politics one day. That'd be wonderful. I think he should.
Yeah.
I heard Herschel Walker is going to run for governor of Georgia. He'll win. I'm pretty sure. They're saying that Herschel's, Huckabee's daughter's running for governor in Arkansas. She's already ahead. They're already going to get rid of that Liz Cheney's going to lose. Whoever runs against her in Wyoming, she's going to get her rear end.
Yeah, her star is definitely falling.
Yes, and I believe of a guy like Brady, even Gronkowski, one of them guys, if they ever got into politics, they would probably win. And, what I still, for the life of me, don't understand how Massachusetts is such a blue state. That state is so blue, it's disgraceful. I mean, come on. Somebody's got to take over that state in conservative viewpoint. Well, only way, Mike, unless they bring in millions of illegals into Massachusetts, then it'll be like California. It's always going to be blue. That's why I say Texas better fight for their ultimate right or succeed from the nation, because they're going to turn that state blue. That's what bumbling buffoon Biden's plan is, guaranteed.
Yes,
Kamala Communist Harris, who shouldn't even be a vice president because her family wasn't even born in this country, her mother and father. I don't even believe she should be a vice president. But their whole modus operandi, Mike, is to turn Texas blue. That's it, guaranteed. That's the whole thing in a nutshell.
They definitely were talking about that even before the election.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
They would love to turn Florida blue, and that's why they were trying to get Gillum over DeSantis. And if that guy Gillum would have got in there, Mike, I'll tell you what, this state would be a total 360-degree difference what we're happening right now.
Okay.
And that's why everybody's coming to Florida, because we have a great governor here. He'll be a great president, too, DeSantis, my book. He knows about this illegal incursion they're trying to pull on us. But, again, Mike, I just want to say this. Brady won the Super Bowl for the 7th time. You know what? These people can't handle it. They can't handle it like that. They were all pulling from homes for 6 hours, unrelenting, how blacks are being treated by whites. I couldn't take it anymore. I was going nuts. I actually didn't watch the first 2 quarters of the game. I turned it on halftime when I seen they were leading. I'm saying, I want to sit up and finish watching it. And when they won, I was going nuts. So happy because I won a little dough on the money. So won some money on that game. So I was happy about it. And to me, we need leadership like Brady. Brady came in there to turn that team around. They won a Super Bowl. Well, I think Donald Trump was doing the same here. Now we got a bumbling buffoon who's just going to crush this country, like a lot of your callers say. This country's on the precipice of disaster.
It's on life support.
What I got to say about that. It's on life support, absolutely. So thank you for taking my call, Mike. Have a great day. And I love all the callers, whether they're mainly right. Well, some of them are a little whacked out, but some of them are all right. Most of them are all right. That's all I got.
All right. Well, Tom, thank you very much for the phone call, and we're going to switch over to Jim in Montana. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Hey, commenting towards one of the callers yesterday, and then one of the callers a few callers ago. The one caller was saying yesterday that, I don't like to see the show go in this direction. I like my sort of truth, and I don't like this sort of truth. He said, I don't like to see the show go towards the InfoWars type style and whatnot. And then the gentleman earlier had said, as far as the topic with the Holocaust and whatnot, he said, just drop it. Let's not talk about it. We can't do that, guys. Okay, that's the whole point of why I even tune in and call with this show. We can't start being like, I want this one sort of truth, but I don't want this other truth. That's what the media does. Okay? That's what the media does. That's why I've been tuning into this show for so many years, is because it doesn't stifle information like that. Okay? Now
we try and give everybody a fair platform here. The only thing that we do try and stamp down on are the kook calls, like the Apollo moon landings were faked, and Bigfoot and Loch Ness monster's love child, and that kind of stuff.
I know,
we
and you try to stay away from religion as well.
Say again?
I understand, but some, and you try to stay away from religion as well. I understand. I've always tried to respect the rules. But if somebody has, straight information, and actual facts to back it up, let them bring it.
I agree.
Let them bring
I agree. Absolutely.
Let them, yeah. Let them bring their truth. Yeah, I don't want to hear a whole bunch of old conspiracy. I mean, if they want to bring that, let them have their 5 minutes, whatever. Let's focus on more productive things I'm more adhered to. But you know what? Let them bring their truth. If they got facts, and if they're bringing something that's bogus, let the democratic debating process happen. Okay, like we did with Dustin.
Yes.
In the meantime, we were with Dustin. Yeah, we got pretty heated debates about it, but we were never like, "Oh, shut Dustin down. We don't want him bringing his kind of truth towards, you know." Me and Tom would just dissect it and tear it apart. You know, but I was the one who broke about the PCR test being bunk.
Yes.
If you could remember, Michael. I maybe some people don't quite remember, because when I first started calling frequently, I was nervous and I wasn't able to really articulate what I was.
Well, I can hear that you're nervous now, and you know, please try and calm down. You know, I haven't bitten a collar in at least 3 weeks now, so you know.
You put me in front of, surround me in front of crown wall, full crown fire, and I'm perfectly fine. But put me on a phone call in front of thousands of people. But anyway, so anyway, I was the one who broke on that PCR.
Yes,
it was me. Okay, and I brought a lot to the table. Okay, so anyway, just moving on. One quick thing. Okay. From the High Roller channel.
Yes.
Okay, from the High Roller channel. They have just broke on a story. Now, this is through them. That there was an assassination attempt on Donald J. Trump at the Mar-a-Lago on the East Wing window. Okay?
Interesting. I heard something about it, but I wasn't able to confirm.
I've got several people trying to 100% confirm it now. Like I said, this is through the High Roller on their channel. And apparently Donald Trump had just installed bulletproof glass before he made the final move into the White House.
Obviously a smart choice.
And, yes. Apparently it was a rifle shot. For the East Wing, it had to be an aerial. It's pretty much mostly ocean right there. It had to have been an aerial shot, is what they were saying, or a drone. They said an aerial shot.
I would almost go with the drone because it's very difficult to aim a rifle inside an aircraft, even if you have a gyro-stabilized platform under it.
That's what they're thinking, yes, sir.
Okay.
I would say you're right on there, and that's what they're thinking as well. So I just thought I'd throw that out there and get some Rivero Rangers. Maybe if we can get a confirmation on that, that would be great.
Yeah, that would be nice, because I have not been able to confirm it.
And if you go to my deal on LinkedIn, Jim Down AAA Forestry, I just put up a whole bunch of new information. They're in mega memes, okay? But in those videos is just incredible hard facts on everything that's been going on, all the corruption, voter fraud stuff that's just been coming out in the last month that not a lot of people know about. I don't got the time on this show, obviously. But, and I've been promoting your show.
Thank you. I appreciate it,
Mike. And the shows that I've been on, I'm posting and I'm pushing them through. I have a way that I can just repost and keep pushing them through to people.
I like appreciate
that. Setup better than YouTube, because YouTube you're fishing. With my setup, I'm hunting,
Yes, absolutely.
But anyway,
all right, well, Jim, I'm going to have to let you go. We're running short on time here, but thank you for the support and for the comments. And we're going to switch over. First of all, there are phone lines open if you want to call on in. Area code 512-248-8252. And we're going to go to Phil in Florida. Hello, Phil. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, what's on my mind is all the talk about war between Russia and the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
and how the Dems over the whole Trump term there, since day one with the Russian collusion and Russians are the bad guy, and here we see the Dems that are in now, they're just carrying out the destruction of the U.S. and I go back to the World Economic Forum, and the Great Reset, and how you basically this reset to have the U.S. Trump go to the World Davos and say, look, the U.S. we're gonna stay to ourselves and make America great again, and we don't need this international globalization.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, Putin made a similar speech at the most recent
yes,
World
he did.
Economic Forum, as far as Russia. And, here Trump gets in 2016 and he says, I think it's a good idea to mend relations with Russia and try to have a good relationship with them. And, there's so many people, Trump messed up so many people's plans,
Yes, he did.
And now Putin is as well, with the getting involved in Syria and all that, but mostly, saying, look, we're not down with this globalization thing and the Great Reset. That just makes sense, facilitate, stir up a war between the U.S. and Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, has that been part of this whole thing with the Democrats and going after Trump since day one in 2016, whenever,
Well, he entered office 2017
years.
here. Well, the Democrats are driven primarily by a sense of revenge for Hillary's loss.
Yeah.
The entire election system was being driven by the desire to reassert control over the voters. Because Hillary was supposed to win, and there was a massive amount of election fraud in 2016, but not enough. That's why they had to double it this last time, which is why they got caught by so many people. And, the idea is that the upper levels of our government want to operate without having to worry about what the voters are thinking anymore, which is usually the sign of a third world banana republic. And that's kind of where we are right now. As far as Russia is concerned, Vladimir Putin appears to be the only adult in a planet-wide romper room filled with these little children who happen to be running countries.
Yes, now that Trump is out of the way, I mean, I don't know if I'd call Trump the adult in the room, but I mean, he was also in the way of this global reset plan,
Mm-hmm.
and with the Dems and Biden and all this, and just totally taking the country down to the mat now.
Yes,
that brings them ever closer to this, one world global reset. The Davos, what's his name, Klaus, whatever the hell, Schmidt and so that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that it's not just, orange man bad, I think I'm wondering how much is related to taking care of Putin and Trump, getting them out of the way so they can, finish up the plan that they've had so long, the fourth industrial and, the new world order, for lack of better words, according to the way these guys want it. So anyway, that's. Oh, and I did take a look at the video on BitChute. Woo's News, 21-minute video about the analyzing the girl getting shot in the Capitol, and
okay.
It reminds me so much of the Boston Marathon bombing and how so many citizens.
All right, Bill, I'm going to have to let you go. I have to let you go. We got to take a commercial break. We're coming up on the last segment of our program today, and I got a bunch of calls to try and get through. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and we're going to go back to the phones and try and get to all the phone calls. Alan in Illinois, what's on your mind?
Thank you, sir. I have a comment about the legal defense of Donald Trump. I'm noticing his attorneys, all they're saying is they're mumbling about free speech, and they're missing something very important. The protesters, the demonstrators, did not get angry until a police officer shot and killed Ashley Babbitt. That lady protester.
I have to disagree with you because, you know, the rioters were already breaking into the Capitol building before Ashley was shot.
Okay, now wait. Okay, I understand there's an issue of timeline here, and you can take that position. But I would like to point out that the legal defense in a situation like that is provocation. Those people were provoked into becoming super angry by watching that woman being killed. Now, let me tell you what I think. I think RBN listeners should call the defense attorneys for Donald Trump, call them on the phone, or you won't be able to send them emails, but, you know, leave a message with the receptionist and just explain my idea about provocation as a defense. I understand what you're saying. My idea is I was watching a bunch of high school kids.
But Alan, here's the problem. They're not defending the protesters. They're defending Donald Trump. And what the issue is, was his speech to be considered incitement? And again, we know that the FBI and the police knew before Trump's speech there was going to be trouble. And Ashley was shot climbing through a window, so the timeline does not really work. And I don't think the RBN listeners should be harassing Trump's lawyers at this time. Anyway, thanks an awful lot. We're going to try and get another call in here. David in West Virginia. Hello, what's on your mind?
Just a quick comment, Mike, about my nomination for the overused media word of the year, and that would be baseless.
Yes,
I don't know.
I would agree.
I don't know if you've
with my use of
you can't read an article about. Well, every article you read about the Trump thing, there's baseless accusations here and baseless accusations there.
Yes.
And in the first place, it's the media arbitrarily deciding what's baseless and what isn't.
Yes,
but beyond
that's their job.
Beyond that, I would like your listeners to ask themselves if they ever heard the word baseless applied to either Hillary's accusations of election fraud or Stacey Abrams
or the whole Russiagate
her election.
The whole Russiagate thing, that turned out to be a hoax, but you never heard the corporate media knock that down. Anyway, David, I'm going to squeeze one more call in here before the end of the show. Darren in Illinois, quick as a bunny, what's on your mind?
Hello, it's good to meet you, sir. I've never called your show before, and I appreciate your being there.
I'll be gentle.
I just wanted to get your take on a theoretical, hypothetical situation. If the vaccine turns out to be a mass calling event, eliminating people across the breadth and face of the earth, what do you think the unwashed masses' reaction would be to something like that?
Well, I think there would definitely be a lot of violence in the streets, and they would start going after anybody in the medical industry. And it would be an ugly situation. But yes, I understand there are concerns that this is part of Bill Gates' depopulation. Anyway, Darren, there's the music playing. I need to let you go. Everybody, please stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.